This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
The world has approximately 7 billion people roaming the planet at any one given time. Throughout our lives, we are considered fortunate if we connect with a handful. There's a chemistry and a bond that science can't explain, but a heart can define. You learn quickly that family is not always blood. You love them for all their strengths and accept their weaknesses. Brothers in victory and brothers in pain. You stand back to back and fight, even when the enemy seems overwhelming. The story ends and you're blindsided by the truth that nothing lasts forever. One inevitably leaves before the other, leaving a big giant hole that will never be filled. We must move on, but never allow the memory to fade. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we're going to take a step back in time, and we're going to remember our very good friend, Mike Failace, who left us on May 9th, 2024. In studio today are two of his dearest friends, and that's Mike DePalma and Bobby Crudele. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody's police, but we do trust Toyota Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So as always, gentlemen, you've been guests on this show numerous times. This social media question's a little different. It comes from a gentleman named Kevin Donaldson. Actually, it's just a question that I want to start to show him.
That's a tough name.
That's not what you were going to say. You were going to say something else.
No,
right?
I wasn't.
You were going to say something else.
Not.
Go ahead, just say it.
I'm not.
Just say it. Get canceled.
I'm not.
Actually, it's just a question I want to start off this show with, and that's, Mike and I, we had some adventures together, and whenever we had an adventure together, I laughed very hard. We did some stuff together that I pissed myself with. So we all have those funny stories of Mike, something that just made us belly laugh really hard, something that we always remember. There's numerous of them, but you pick out one. And I just want to know, what's the funniest thing you've ever seen Mike do? Mike DePalma, why don't you lead this off?
I went to the academy with him, so that was a serious thing, and I have to say,
was it when he took his clothes off?
No, I'd have to say I actually watched him here in the studio, and he took that gigantic finger of his, because it's like Abby normal, and he actually, I don't know if he was picking his nose or he was just like trying to clear something out, and it looked like he ruptured his brain. Like it stretched his nostril.
Was it like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he's pulling the thing out of his nose
like
in Total Recall?
His one nostril was like 6 sizes open.
It's dilated 9 centimeters.
He sneezed and a silver dollar fell out.
First thing that came in my head. I don't know.
Bobby, I know you spent the most time with Mike. What's something that you can remember? I know there's numerous, but what's one that you can remember that really just made you lose it?
There's so many, but when you're put on the spot and you don't have time to prepare, I'll say this. We used to golf in so many outings together. Like, he was always in my foursome. And he would be like, I'm down, and he would golf, So every single golf outing, I don't know if you probably noticed, Mike pissed more than anybody I've ever met.
He had a
bladder the size of a peanut.
He had a problem.
Seriously, he was like, he'd drink some water, he'd drink whatever he's drinking, he pissed, just constantly pissing. And I was like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with it? Boom, nonstop. So we'd be in these golf outings, and after the first hole, he would say, I'd say, Mike, you're up. And he'd be like, hold on, standing there with his dick out, pissing all over the tires on the carts. Now you're with, you're in a foursome, right? And he would go to the next hole, he would piss on their tire. And he would make sure he pissed on every single tire. It was the weirdest shit I ever saw. And I'd be like, what are you doing? He goes, just equal opportunity, just pissing on everyone's
marking his territory.
Yeah, he was the weirdest shit in the world. Man, I used to laugh about it. I used to be like, Mike's pissing on tires. Like, he didn't give a shit. It was funny.
I played in a golf outing with him at Trump National, and that was funny. I laughed for 18 holes. I played like shit, but I didn't care.
Great.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, he just was a character. Just he had these little idiosyncrasies, and that was one of them. He always was consistent. He never changed in what he did. Boom, 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 same thing.
Mine goes along with yours. It's a bodily function thing. So Mike and I, in January of 2022, we went down to Florida, and it was like the podcast reaching another level. So we did a bunch of shows down there. I think we did like 7 shows down there in 4 days. It was exhausting in reality. And we went from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale and everywhere in between. And everywhere we went, Mike shit. He shit. We recorded some episodes in people's houses. And Mike's like, "Can I use your bathroom?" All right. And we went to a gas station, he'd shit. We went to a restaurant, he'd shit. The funniest one was we're doing the Matt Cox show. All right, so we're in Matt Cox's house, and he's got a studio downstairs, and there's a bathroom off to the side. And Matt had a bunch of toilet paper on a shelf. And I go in there, I'm like, "Look, just let me go take a piss before you blow it up." I go in there and I hit the shelf. After I piss, I don't flush. And one of the rolls of toilet paper falls in the toilet. So I'm laughing because I'm not going to flush. I'm going to make gigantic fingers pick it out with his hand.
He don't give a shit. He probably flushed it.
He probably shit on top of it.
Yeah, he was fucking nasty.
But it was like a joke. Everywhere we went, Mike's like, "I gotta go take a shit."
We used to be over at the Giant games, and he'd say, "See that Porto Sam right there? That's the best one. I've been in all 15 of them because I pissed 1,900 times since we got here. That one's really clean." Like what? Like Mike, you could take a nap in it? He's, "Yeah, it's clean." Okay.
That was a question. We didn't get that from the audience. I wanted to ask everybody that question because while the tragedy that just ensued, we can't forget that Mike made us laugh more than most. So thank you, Kevin Donaldson, for sending that one in. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. Go see Gus over at Cubita Cafe. Some of the best homemade Cuban cuisine. He's a top-notch chef. Used to work at Le Cirque. Gus recorded an episode 2 or 3 episodes back from this one. And you're going to see he came a long way, and he's got a great talent, and he's really honing his talent. And you see it because Gus isn't in the food business. He's in the people business. So when you go into the restaurant, you really feel like you're home. You feel like your family. And the best advertisement is my son is set to graduate next week from middle school. And I said, "We'll go out to lunch when you're done." He goes, "Dad, can we go to Cubita Cafe?" So go see Gus over there at 234 Franklin Avenue. So guys, this was not a well-planned episode, but it was a necessary episode. I think about a week after Mike's passing, we had to get in here and we had to talk about him. For those of you who are just tuning in and this is your first episode, sadly enough, my brother, my business partner, and my best friend, Mike Failace, took his life on May 9th, 2024. He died from a single gunshot wound to the head. He was backsliding for many months, which we're going to talk about. And we all saw it. And we never thought it was going to lead to this. But I'm pretty sure that anybody that's been touched by suicide believes the same thing. It's never going to happen. They're never going to do that. But his peripheral vision just got so narrow he couldn't get out of it. Now, here's the problem. His pain is no longer around, but his pain has been transferred onto all of us. So let's take a step back in time. And I would like to hear how both of you guys met Mike. I've heard bits and pieces of it from both of you guys. But let's start off by how we met this man who's impacted our life so much. Bobby, let's start this one with you because you've known him the longest.
Yeah, so when we moved to North Arlington, I met Mike in the 2nd grade. So 7 years old.
7 years old.
It just immediately friends. The first thing he ever did to me is just take you through like a little bit. We were walking down the hall. I never met this guy ever in my life. And like obviously I'm a new kid in the school, right? Catholic school. Walking down the hall. He says, "Hey, what's your name?" I go, "Bobby." He goes, ping. He hits me in the nuts. Like fucking with the back of his hand. Now his hands were the same size they are now. When he was a kid, I swear to God, he was like freakishly freaky, you know. And he's a little kid. Whack! I was like, "Oh!" He's like, "Hey, welcome to Queen of Peace." So I was like, "Oh, thanks." And I ended up becoming good friends with him. So we were friends from that point through grammar school. He went to Seton Hall Prep. Everybody knows that. He was Mr. Seton Hall Prep. Through Seton Hall Prep, he would always come back to the parties and stuff like that. I went to Queen of Peace, and then I went to North Arlington my senior year, but he was always around.
Queen of Peace is where we had the funeral, correct?
Yeah, well, behind it was the grammar school, and
I
then
saw
behind that was the high school. Now it's the North Arlington Middle School. But anyway, he was in my. So then it's just weird how we went through life. That I would go to Lemore's all the time when he would be working as a bouncer, and we were always close. We were always friends. You know what I mean? Then we got hired the same year. Police officers the same exact year. Cops. Then we got on Lyndhurst. It just, I think our friendship became super close when. Early on when he had kids and they were, his kids are older than my kids, but, in between there for like the last 20 years, I've been very, very close to him. He's been my top two friends in my life.
So one of the coolest stories he ever told me, and this was before I met you.
Not the anal beads.
No, that was the other story.
Oh, okay.
That was the other story, and it was under influence when you were still drinking. He pinned your stripes on you.
Yeah.
He pinned your stripes on you when he made sergeant.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. That speaks volumes of how he thought about you. It also speaks volumes that you were honored enough to receive that gift.
Yeah, he was the type of friend that was always there. He never. I always say that's his endearing quality. He was around. You turn and he'd be there. Be like, where the fuck did you come from? Like Phantom the Opera type of shit. But he was solid.
He was a sidler, like in Seinfeld.
Yeah, he was a solid dude.
Mike DePalma, how'd you meet Mike Failace? Why don't you walk us through your first meeting?
I didn't have a relationship, as close as Bobby did, but I met Mike in the police academy. We started together, and
He walks in. What's your first impression of him?
From being from the military at the time, he was very straightforward, very serious, very ready to go, very competitive. He kept up there with the best of them, and after that, I mean, obviously, we hung out as an academy class, and even to this day, we still stick together, still talk and stuff like that. But Mike was always that the center of getting everybody together, the center of helping this person when going through bad times, center of that person. So he was that guy that got everybody together, and where we became even closer was, I was going through, my stuff and my tough times, and, we used to talk all the time, and he was pretty much a pillar to that, where getting everybody together to, try and help me in this way, that way. But, so, I mean, I guess throughout the years, I became closer and closer, and obviously, he brought me, to the podcast. I met you. So Mike was just, you're right. He was like always there.
It's like episode 17.
Right. He was that guy that like brought everybody together, like the backbone of every single situation, and I remember having conversations with him when I was going through some tough times, and my lip was hanging, and I didn't even know who I was talking to, and he's like, Mike, it's going to be okay. I got this and that. So it was more comforting too. I had a comforting relationship with him too.
That's probably one of the things I realized about Mike in the end, that he was always helping everybody else. He just didn't know how to help himself.
Right. He put himself aside to help everybody else. That's
because it made himself feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
But he really was like that guy.
He was.
Because we all do it. Listen, we're all civil servants. We all did the job for the right reason, I believe. And collectively throughout a career, you're bombarded with all this shit, and you're constantly helping people.
He was really good at keeping in contact with people. So how many, if you had to guess, not having access to his phone, how many group chats do you think he was on? Text message threads.
Forget it.
He was a group chat king. I would leave the conversation. You know how you can do that?
Yeah.
Leave it.
I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just XL. What's that?
OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. You can put your feet
listen,
online.
I'm coming to light now. That's all.
So I worked, before I was a police officer, I sold cars at Caldwell Toyota with his brother Frank. And I knew Frank. Frank would always sit in the back, read his paper. He'd been there for a few years. He was, if there's a couple types of people in the car business. There's like your grizzled veterans who are just hardened by life, and that was Frank. So Frank would sit back there and he would tell me about his brother. His brother was a cop at the time, and he was super squared away. I think he was still with the sheriff's department. And Mike would come in occasionally, and that's how I met Mike. He would just come in. I'd know him to say hi to him, shake his big, giant, freakish hands, and then be on our way. So fast forward, God, we're talking 97, 98, somewhere in that neighborhood there. So I have my shooting, and I'm retired, and I still stayed in group therapy to try to help some other people along the same way that I was given help. And one day I'm sitting in there, and I see him. Remember, this is some time here. He's changed a little bit, and I see him walk in, and I'm like, Mike? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know if you remember me. I used to work with Frank, and he remembered me, or at least he pretended that he did. But I saw the look on Mike's face. I saw that drawn look, that lost, hopeless look, because it was right after his shooting, which was September 16, 2014. I saw that lost look in him, and I identified in the same look that he had is the same look I had when I first entered in the group. So I grabbed him, I pulled him aside, I said, look, here's my phone number, and you and I are going to talk. Give me your phone number. I'm not saying call me when you can. Give me your phone number, because my thought process back then was you got to stay on top of people. So we called him and we talked, and we were religiously the two people who were always at group therapy. As group therapy went on, I started to get into a really bad place, and I just wanted to distance myself from it. So I sort of walked away from group therapy for a short period of time, but Mike always kept in contact with me. And then in December 2020, I started this show, and it was like a COVID project. It was just something to get this stuff out. And I'll never forget, I'm at work, and I'm on Littleton Road. That's where I am. I pull over in a parking lot, and for some reason I just called him. I said, "Hey Mike, how you doing?" Just to check in on him. And as we're talking, he's telling me he's going through a divorce, he's going through all this stuff, and things aren't good, and he's just really unloading on me. And I said, "You know what? Would you be interested in coming on this show?" Comes in on episode 9. And I have some pictures that I'll post throughout the week when this show airs of him doing this recording. And he always used to make fun of it, because it was audio only. There was no video, so I had paper clips holding these things up like this. But it was a fantastic episode. It was something, I sort of floundered my way through the first 8 episodes, but when he came in there, the rhythm that he and I had together was so nice and so natural. I went in my garage. We recorded on a Saturday, and Mackie came in. Mackie took him in. It's the first time I ever met Mackie. And I went through and I edited it that night, and I remember calling him going, "Hey, buddy, and we got something here. Like, this is really good. I've listened to it 3 times already." And I was there. And I sent it to him, and he's like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm releasing this tomorrow." And I remember that episode blew everything out of water. I was getting 25, 30 listens or something. His episode got 333 listens. And then the rest is history, So I had that built-in relationship with him, and it just sort of ebbed and flowed. The good thing about him in this show is the longer we worked together, the more we knew how each other worked. And, I know you guys have stepped in. Well, you're ready to step in. You, Tom Flynn, have stepped in from time to time, and I don't expect you ever to be him, because him and I had a rhythm that was built over time. So obviously Mike had this quality about him to draw people together. I mean, you saw that at the viewing. You saw that at the funeral. He had this quality where people were just drawn to him. If you guys had to theorize as to what quality that was that drew people to him, do you think you guys could pinpoint that?
Yeah.
You want to expound upon that?
Mike was one of the most genuine people you're going to find. He didn't mix his words. He didn't act inconsistent. Every time he saw you, he acted the same way. Every time he spoke to you, he used the same words. He was very secure in who he was. He's a very confident individual. He for 98% of his life, he was the same exact guy. And he was just that. He had a lot of endearing qualities because you knew what you were dealing with. And, he was very sincere. Like, if he was your friend, he was your friend. And he didn't give a fuck if you were a jock, if you were a geek, if you were a musician. He was very, very just, I like you. And then he would build I built a relationship. 50-something years I'm friends with this fucking guy. And we built our relationship every single year. It got stronger and stronger. It was just one of those things. And that's because of who he was, you know? He's just that guy.
But there were times that you fought with him. There was times that I fought with him.
Yeah,
and
It's
we had
always like
arguments.
and the cool thing was and I actually kind of learned this later on in my life was I try not to hold the grudge too long, especially somebody who I care about, and I did care about Mike. So when we got into a fight, he got pissed off at me for something, I got pissed off at him. We would talk. I would call him and I would just say, "Hey, look, what the fuck? You know, what the fuck's going on?" Stuff like that. And we were able to work through those things. You guys have probably had similar situations like that. Phlebotomist.
I don't. I don't know to that extent. I mean, going back to that question, I mean, it was his personality. It just drew you to him because you always felt comfortable. You know what I mean? So like, no matter what the situation was, Mike was there. You know, Mike was there behind the scenes. You know,
He dropped everything to come.
yeah,
come
he
and see
really, he
it.
really did. Like, believe me, like like I said, he was the driving force when I was going through some stuff. So, obviously everybody else, there's other people involved, but him, you're right. He's genuine. He's real. He's just.
I think Mike reveled in the
Systematic.
fact that he was the guy. He was the guy. So just to drive my point home, my son was looking at Seton Hall Prep. Well, Mike was over the moon. Brings my son to Seton Hall Prep. Introduced him to the coach. Made my son really feel important. Like that was I got to stand back as a dad and watch my son glow.
Yeah.
With oh my God, this is cool as shit.
It's obvious. I mean, that day in the church, it just what, how many people came out for him. That says something about him.
Yeah, and the vast array of people. He wasn't just friends with football guys or Seton Hall Prep guys or cops. He was friends with every walk of life. There was guys. I mean, the amount of phone calls I got after his death from just the craziest people that you've ever heard of, just from every single walk of life, and it was fun. It was nice. But then so Bobby, you're the only one that knew him before he was a cop. When he became a cop, do you think that it fit his personality?
Absolutely, 100%. When I've said this several times, nobody embraced that job, not just physically and body language wise, but mentally, the way he approached it, like him. Nobody. If I was gonna close my eyes and draw a picture of a cop, it would be him. He fit the mold and he loved it. Like it was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. Like he was at his best in a uniform. I've said that before, and I hold true to that. He was at his absolute best. He did the job the right way.
So him and I thought a lot alike about certain things. One of the things in particular that him and I thought a lot alike as far as police world goes is uniform. Like we were uniform guys. Our stuff was always shined, it was always polished, always pressed.
Forgot about it.
And we had the same reason why. It wasn't for pride or anything like that. It was for constructive authority. It was you get out of the car. If you look the part, you're going to be the part. You're going to have more confidence, and you're going to be respected. It's you got something off the jump.
You don't look like a bag of shit.
Yeah, I actually, that's one of the things. It's funny you said that. When I thought he was prior military.
Yeah,
in the academy.
Because
he had that, that aura. Like you could. I was like, whoa.
Well, it's one of the funniest things that he says that, because one of our biggest conversations in his basement used to be when we'd be sitting there drinking beers and stuff, watching hockey or whatever. We both said, we should have went in the military. Me personally, because my father would always say, you should go in the military, and he was Army, But him too. And you kind of like get a little bit of what it's like to be in the military as a cop.
He had that mindset. Mike had that mindset.
It depends on who you're trained by. Like I was trained by a Force Recon Marine, and that's the way I enjoyed policing.
Yeah.
I looked at him. My drill was very, very similar to Mike, although he didn't have a sense of humor. That was the difference. But uniform, like that's why I took so much pride in uniform, because I saw the value in it, and so did Mike. And just putting your heart and soul into the job. Unfortunately, you put so much heart and soul into the job.
It consumes you.
It consumes you, and that's sort of kind of what happened to him. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com. But that brings us to September 16, 2014. Okay? I wasn't there. I saw the aftermath. I saw almost the immediate aftermath. I didn't know Mike. I knew him a little bit as a cop, but not much. Where both of you are the benchmarks for this. So you saw Mike, the squared away, lived the life of a police officer, job cop, but you also got to see him afterwards. So what was that difference?
Well, actually, before any of that, and this is something that people don't know, Mike and I would imagine you too, were there at 9/11. You know, so that took a huge toll. You know, I was there. Yeah. I was stationed there that day. I was there. Like, you know, I was on Ellis Island. I was here. I was there. That had a major impact on him. I think that a lot of people forget about that. You're a new cop, 1998, you come on, and then all of a sudden, few years later,
the job changes.
Devastation. Yeah. Pure devastation. And now you're there afterwards, and you're doing all this shit, and all this death is around you, carnage, you know, and you're just overwhelmed. That stays with you, and that stayed with him. But when if you looked at Mike, just looked at him, and you said if he had to use deadly force and take someone's life, he'd be okay.
He's the guy I want next to me doing it.
Yeah, not just that.
100%.
I also think I thought in my mind, he would just be like, I'm going home at the end of the night. All the cliche words we say, all the things that have happened to us, like at some point where we've been in the shit, and he was going to be the guy that it would never face. That's what my take was on him, because he had such a strong, stoic exterior. He chiseled face. He didn't show a lot of emotion. You know what I mean?
Like,
he was
it wasn't going to affect him. Like, it's impossible.
No, he was invincible, almost unbreakable. That's how I looked at Mike. My whole life, I looked at him as unbreakable. He killed that person, and it was a good shoot and everything else for anybody who's got any issues with that. I mean, he did what he had to do, and it broke him.
Mike had a moral compass.
He had a lot of moral composition in there, and it broke him.
It got a little off kilter later in his life, but I know Mike had a very big moral compass because I know why he got in the job, and that was a moral compass thing. I want to do. I want to do this job. I want to do this job right, and I want to be the best at it. So that you see that death and destruction. You know, when I was down in Louisiana, people were asking me about 9/11 because I talk about it. And so I started asking them about Katrina. It's it's the same theater, but it's just a different movie playing.
Right.
You know, the devastation that they saw, some of the guys who were on back then, and what they, you know, you're seeing stuff that they play on the on the newsreels. So it doesn't, you know, and that moral compass in him got a little shattered that day.
I remember seeing him after, and you know, I've obviously, you know, everybody kind of
after the shooting
heard what happened. He was working down in Hoboken on a pier, and you know, you could see he was reaching out. You know what I mean? Obviously, and you know, I was surprised. You know what I mean? Someone like him reaching out. You know,
because he never had to reach out before.
Right.
Never
you know what I'm saying?
Need.
So I used to make my way down there, you know, just to talk to him, and you know, he was mentioning stuff about.
Well, think about the psychological effect. Think about the psychological effect. You're the guy that everybody goes to when they have a question. You know, even other officers go to Mike Failace because he was a veteran.
Right.
All right, what do we do here, Sarge? What do we do here? Now all of a sudden he's the guy that's got to go to somebody else.
And I think that's a great point because Mike made a living in law enforcement as that guy, but he also kept everything beyond, like, just simple. He simplified everything. Okay, so if he gave you advice, it was the simplest advice, but it made so much sense.
He had an answer to everything.
Yeah, he had an answer. It was simple.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. And you might go, that's it? But he was right. But then when that event happened and he took that person's life, everything became complicated because the simple answers weren't getting it done. His simple approach to everything, and I'm not calling him simple, but I'm calling him, the way he approached things was genius.
Right.
He just would simplify everything.
you know,
There was no
overthinking.
Yeah, no overthinking. It was like, this is what needs to be done. And I'd look at him and go, how about I hit you in the head with a shovel? Like, it pissed me off like this. That's it? And he was right, though. I refused to see some things.
But you also said that in coaching. You know, he'd be on the sidelines when you're coaching football, and he'd point you something out and just change something.
That I wouldn't see. And I would be like, God, why didn't... Because you get so caught up in everything else that's going on, you don't see the most simplest things. And he saw everything as simple. That's why he was so successful as a police officer.
And you know, like him, that I know of him as a supervisor, you know, he would give advice or, you know, tell somebody this, and they knew he was behind that decision. So he would never leave them, you know, flapping away. He'd always have their back. You know what I mean? So that's how people felt. Like, hey, if I make the decision, you know, no matter what, Mike was there and he was going to have my back.
I had a supervisor like that, so I can kind of envision what the people underneath him saw. I had a supervisor that I knew had my back no matter what happened. Yeah. You know, unless I did something bonehead stupid, I was going to get called on the carpet for. And that's important for an officer to.
It's not only that's who he was in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In every aspect.
Yeah, he took he took that into his personal life too. But you know what? The one thing about Mike is I don't always think that. I think after the shooting, he reached out, like he would be more open, but
Well, see, in the beginning of group therapy, he was very open.
Yeah, but then as time went on, he kind of extroverted a little bit. He didn't communicate as well, and that's when it started. It took time. It took time.
If I look over the course of 10 years of the time that I really, really got to know him and really got close to him, I watched this guy who came into group therapy, saw other officers letting go of their stuff and feeling better about it, and he was willing to jump in and do it. But over time, and this is something that I looked at in retrospect, I wish I would have recognized this when he was alive. I watched him, it's like this circle just went and suck up.
But he never really took the time to heal himself.
Yeah, he was healing everybody
You know
else.
what I
But
mean?
the other thing,
He was worried about it. Yeah, you're right.
I really think that it wasn't working, you know?
Well, for a short time it did. I think for a short
it
time.
worked. It's like, you know, it worked a little bit, but then he needed more because in his mind it was complicated. It was just really complicated, and he never got past that. That's where it starts right there. He never couldn't get past that, and then all these other things in his life happened, and it just piled on the rabbit, and everybody has a breaking point.
So when he came in on episode 9, and there was that ebb and flow, and you can feel it when you're in the studio with somebody who really just is, you just have an energy together. I know both he and I lost our purpose when we lost our job. So when he agreed to come on and be the co-host of the show, I know the purpose that I felt. Even way in the beginning, I felt that purpose, and I think for a short time he did too.
No, I think he did all the way through, because I remember the first time I was on the show. It was in the beginning. It was, you know, take your shoes off, come in the basement. It was really weird. But we get down there.
Well, I wanted to play with your feet underneath the table.
I kept my socks. It's just, take your socks off. No.
Put your big toe in my mouth.
Oh, God, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, take it
But
to another level.
he was so happy to have me up there.
Yeah, he was.
It made me feel
Both
like
of you.
It made me feel like $1 million bucks.
You could see him on the front. Like,
He
you
was
could see his
happy.
face.
He's like, these are my guys. Like, if he really loved you, you know what I mean? And he was so happy, so proud of what he was doing. And he couldn't stop talking about you. Like, and I had to hear, before I met you, I had to hear about Kevin. I you know me, I'm kind of like, I'm a little abrupt. Would you say I'm a little abrupt sometimes? But I was like, if I hear about this guy, Kevin, what are you banging this guy, Kevin? What the fuck? Like, you know, it was like, you know, what is this guy? He walks on water. Then I met Kevin. I was like, oh, maybe.
But he did the same about you guys. Like I can remember the approach. So we were trying to get you in for a while, but you had commitments with your kids and coaching and stuff like this. And then when you came in, and I could see you coming down the basement. He says he's a war vet, big war hero, had to do some bad stuff over there, Hoboken, and this is exactly what he said, and he's out of his fucking mind.
Really?
In a good way.
And boy, did he not disappoint on that description.
And I got to sit next to him, right? Every time we're on the show together. Who knows what he's capable of?
It's in a good. I love you, Bob. But Andrew's gonna get it tonight.
But
Can we double team him? Oh, sorry.
when you came,
Sorry, kids.
You came in first, and like I said, you were like 17 or 18. I think you were 18, and you had this amazing story. But I remember
I was all over the place.
I remember, yeah, you were tough to edit.
I was still coming off like
You live in it.
Not only
You're
that,
living
but
it in your
I was, I wasn't doing too great before that. You know what I mean? I just started to, get back to reality.
I knew you sitting next to Mike and how he felt about having, like you said, one of his guys in there. One of his friends went to the academy. I'm going to try to get Nicky Burke in there.
Big, yeah, he was big. He was big like that. His like you said, his friends.
Yeah,
it was big to
It
him.
made him, and that's why he never stopped talking about the podcast. Maybe he trickled off in the end a little bit because he was just consumed by other shit. Yeah. But up till it was his thing. And you know what? I got to say it. I thought this, when I'm looking back now, if he didn't have this, it would have been long before.
So I'm going to give everybody a little window
opinion.
into what happened towards the end of the show. Him and I, this is kind of lifting the curtain a little bit. So when him and I went out to Florida, that's kind of where the show started to gain some traction. And I said, okay, Mike, we have to go out and promote our show. And the way you promote your show is you go on another show. You go on another show, you talk about your stuff, your incident, and you do it. And I had set him up with several shows. I'd set him up with at least 10. And every time, he wouldn't go on. He'd cancel out. I'm not traveling. I'm not doing this. He would just say no. Like, he would say, okay, let me talk to him, and then he would cancel out. So after about 10 of them, I just stopped doing it. And I would try to help him along. I'd say, Mike, you got to get your social media in order. You got to do all this stuff. This is a business. It's fun for us, yes, but this is a business too, and it's going to grow the show. What's good for you is going to be good for the show. And towards the end, I know he started getting a little aggravated at me because I would go out and do these shows and promote these shows. And I remember once he said to me, he goes, well, I got a story too. And I said, Mike, I set you up with like 10 podcasts and you keep canceling out. Well, they're here. And it was always an excuse. And I never understood why he got so aggravated at that. Maybe I did something wrong. That's what I'm wondering.
Maybe, honestly, I'm just thinking about it now. Maybe because he felt that comfortable with you.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Great
Right?
point.
If
You know
he
how
went out
Linus needs a blanket.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So, and Mike,
I just
obviously
thought
Mike's
about
one of the
that.
strongest people I know, but this is your area of expertise. He came on and he just clicked with you. You guys had great chemistry, but he was like it's not a sidekick or nothing like that. He was just your co-host. And without him, maybe he just felt like, I'm not doing something without Kevin. He never would think you did anything wrong. I think it was just like he needed you. He needed you. Just like you need a partner, sometimes you need a real solid partner. You know what I mean?
He did say something like that. He goes, shouldn't we be going on the show?
Exactly, because it was to
did
him
say
it wasn't
that.
solo, it was we. Like people say, us.
See, I'm like a divide and conquer type of guy.
Well, when me and Mike were marching the other day in the Rainbow Parade, we were us, right?
We were we.
And
we
we're all
one.
about support, baby.
One.
That's a good pronoun.
what we do.
You're a we.
No, you know what? We've spoken about that, and I don't know. It just clicked in my head. Listening to you right now, that might have been why.
So at the end, also at the end, and this is for everybody watching right now. I leaned because I saw the downslide. We all saw the backslide, and so I leaned into. I became friends with both of you, and I leaned into both of you because I was having these problems that I tried to talk to him. I couldn't talk to him anymore. I couldn't talk to him about this stuff because he would be dismissive, whatever it was. So I kind of leaned on you guys, like, I don't know what you think, because the last thing I want to do is something wrong, something that hurts somebody who I care about. And that's how I felt what I was doing. But I also had an obligation to try to grow the show for us. It was our thing.
And then we did that episode.
Yeah, well, so that's a big thing. That's a big thing. So let's get a little bit into Mike's backslide. We saw it. The three of us were in constant communication. Constant communication.
I think first and foremost, anybody that's going to be tuning into this and listening, they need to look at this as it's hindsight. We're seeing something,
Right.
and what we're seeing, people can learn from. Because obviously
Not
we
to
didn't
bring out the negative side.
not to bring out the
Just
negative side, but we didn't do. I personally know I didn't do enough. You know, I know my brand of help didn't work for him because I'm going to tell you why. Something about Mike. Mike knows each and every one of us inside and out. He's very, very intelligent. He knew that my outlook, my mindset was, if you need me, I'm there. If you need my help, if you have a problem, recovery, addiction, anything else, depression, I'll be there for you. But if you don't ask, I don't know.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
wouldn't
And he
reach
knew
out
that
to
about me, so
Yeah.
he wouldn't reach out.
Yeah, he
right,
wouldn't do
for
it to
that.
me.
So, in my mind now, knowing what I know and all the regret that I have because of it, I should have attacked. And I should have said, I'm going to come out of the box. And I'm telling this to everybody that's listening. If you think you're a certain way, do something different. I should have went to him.
It's stuff that we have to live with. It is stuff
Yeah.
because I'm racked with guilt. I am so racked with guilt. I talked to my wife about this the other day, and I really don't. I tried to shield my wife from a lot of the problems that were going on in here. I sat down and I said, you know, I feel guilty about my friend's death. I feel complicit. I feel like I could have done something else because we saw him start to ramp up his drinking. We saw him start to do some bad behavior, and our communication was like, "What are we going to do? Like seriously, what? Let's come up with a plan. Let's put our heads together and come up with a plan."
It was too difficult because
You can't do
he
an
had-
intervention.
it's not that- I mean, he had so much pride, you know. So any one of us, you know, we've all been there. We've all been to that point, at least, you know. I don't think it'd be very difficult to tell him. And you know, I remember things that we discussed, like you know, maybe going to him and you know getting a little, hey, we got to go.
So as about 2 weeks prior, or about a week prior, our plan was to go over his house and either have a discussion with him or beat him into submission. Mike, tell me I'm wrong.
That would have been tough, though. I mean,
But
he would've never-
because
he
if we
would've
would have all got together collectively as a group and approached him and said, Mike, you need some help.
I felt you were the only person that could maybe.
Yeah.
That's
some
that's
impact.
my
Not that I'm putting
no
on,
no
you know what I'm
no
saying?
that's
Like-
my biggest form of
Yeah.
regrets because I should have and I think about it quite a bit and I don't tell anybody. I'm saying it now, but I should have went to him. I should have been relentless in my approach to help him, and I believe in myself. You know who I believe in more than anybody? Me. I really do because I've been through so much and I got there that I may have been able to make the difference. I may have, and that's the one thing in my mind. Now, it's not a football game, right? So we can't take the team in the end zone afterwards and say, you left it all out on the field. You got nothing to hang your heads about. My best friend fucking died. He killed himself, and I could have done something about it. So I can't sit there and say, even if I did everything,
We
I'll
didn't
never
leave
feel
it
that
out.
way.
That's
But we
the-
didn't leave it out
That's
there.
the problem I have.
That's the problem I have too. I didn't leave it out there, and even if I did, I'd still feel terrible. But I didn't because I was so steadfast in the way I think. Well, you know how I think. It's
Would you
the
have
way it
felt the
is.
same way if he came down with liver failure from drinking too much?
No, I probably would have been like, let's get you on the fucking donor list. I don't know. You know what I mean?
So
Right.
let's point.
There was a solution.
a
Chance.
There's a difference in drinking yourself to death than shooting yourself. You know what I'm saying? There's a huge difference. It's just long term and painful. The other one's quick, and it leaves all of us here. Thinking like, what could we have done?
What are some of the signs that you saw? The one that pops in my head, this like aside from the obvious ones, did either of you notice that towards the end? I'm talking like the last month and a half, 2 months. Mike was repeating himself a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would repeat the same stories.
I noticed that he was not only that. I noticed that he wasn't going to the gym, and he was always going to the gym. Even after the surgery and he couldn't lift as much, he would still be at the gym. He was in and out. Sometimes 5 minutes, he would just do some stupid exercise and leave. And I'd be like, where'd he go if I was there? And I not caring about the way he appeared, he was always he was not a big dude. He was just a in shape guy. You know, he was jacked up. And
Well,
stuff
his
like
neck
that.
was the cause of.
His neck was the cause of that, but he still could work out.
Yeah.
And he just sort of buried himself in he messed with the alcohol. We all know that. Mike was a routine, a creature of habit. I'm going here, I'm going here, and I'm going here. And then podcast. Easy guy to find, you know? Mm-hmm. So.
Did you guys see anything else?
I've, obviously, I would text you or, talk. You could see that I'm like, there's something the matter.
We had conversations.
Yeah, we're looking at that. We were there, like, so
you guys would text me after Instagram Lives, going, what the fuck?
Like, yeah, I'm like, hey, something's
You know
up.
what I would think
see...
about? We'd be talking about it. So now, I know I can say this, but he's probably one of the most aggressive people I know, and I think he feels the same way about me.
And I'm
but
soft.
We didn't do. You are a cupcake, but you're pretty. But we didn't. We talked more instead of doing. You know, in a sense, we did the one thing we did. We tried to do our little sneak attack in here.
So that brings up a good point. So you had noticed. I think there was an argument that happened at a bar. Was that how this conversation was brought up?
I heard that he had an argument in a bar with somebody. And usually you don't hear him arguing with anybody in a bar because he's always talking to everyone, having a good time. He's not, I can't remember the last time he got in an argument with anybody, got in a fight. Those days were over for him. You know what I mean? He didn't give a shit. And I heard that he was getting in an argument with somebody in a bar. And I kind of was like, tell me more. And, that put up a red flag for me. It did. I was like...
You also saw him coming out. You have a witness see him coming out of a liquor store at 9 a.m.
One of my friends come up to me and he go, yo, what's up with your boy? I'm like, which one? And he's like, Mike. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean, what's up with him? He goes, I seen him coming out of the liquor store. Then it opened with like a thing. He drank those claws, right? He liked those claws.
Seltzer beers, yeah.
Seltzer beers. And I was like, I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised. That's his MO. He just would drive around, drink all day.
You could see him in some of the episodes after watching him. He was getting angrier.
He was starting to. He would shake a little bit.
No, not that, but like some of the questions you could see, like he got more and more intense about getting into a fight or like you could just see the
like a little build-up.
The transformation that was.
So when it was really brought to my attention was before this conversation that you and I had at the book launch in Nutley.
Yeah.
He got so plastered drunk. Now, mind you, I just wrote a book about recovery and overcoming mental health and stuff. And I'm sitting up there talking, and he's heckling me. And I actually got a little pissed at that. Like, he's heckling me.
Yeah, but, before, people have to know that all this is out of concern of him and care. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not like, I'm saying? Like, I don't want people...
I don't think we're bashing him here. We're not.
Yeah. I want people to know that.
We're getting to the bottom of how you go from being this to not being here anymore. Like, that's the whole thing.
But I started getting calls after that book launch. Mind you, I was busy. I was doing my thing. And I started getting calls from people who were there going, yo, what the fuck? What? He was fucking loaded. I watched him, you and I watched him, stumble out of that place and then go to another bar.
Yeah. And I was like, I said something, to his girlfriend. I was like, what the fuck? And she's like, there's no answer. It's just like
there was no at that point.
There's no answer.
There's no answer, and there was no. I don't think there was any turning back.
But what happens is instead of we're concerned, but you're also upset. You know what I mean? So here we are at a book signing. And this is supposed to be a great moment for our friend. And Mike just took sort of for a period of time, like there towards the end, he just took every opportunity that required drinking to take it to the extreme. And there'd be times when you didn't know he was drinking. I would smell it sometimes. He came in at a football game or something like that, but he wouldn't display this, but he was hammered. So it takes a lot for him to get hammered. We're talking a high tolerance here.
He came in here numerous times, drunk. So he came to one of my son's football games, and I'm standing by him. I'm talking to him, and he's reeking of alcohol. He's not stumbling.
No.
But he's reeking of alcohol. And I'm like, you know, okay, I let a lot of stuff go. I shouldn't have let it go. I should have said, dude, you're at a fucking 8th grade football game. What are you doing? But I didn't. Okay, I didn't. And then, so we all saw these signs, and so Bobby and I are talking after this conversation about him getting into a fight, and I said, so what do? We can't do an intervention. He's going to tell us go fuck ourselves. He's not going to listen. It's just, I don't think it's going to land. And I think you guys both agreed with that. So I said, okay, here's I got an idea. Why don't we bring you guys in? You couldn't make it that night. Why don't we bring you guys in? And we talked about this, and we're going to get into your sobriety journey. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to fashion it with my own. We're going to talk about the I, me, and my, but it's actually going to be about him. So episode, what was that, 159 or 160 something?
I was wishing it was 169.
It might be. But it's called The Suffering of Sobriety with Bobby Crudele. And if you listen to that, what we were trying to accomplish there is all the stuff that we were talking about, how much better our lives are that we're sober. We're trying to get Mike to turn the mirror on himself.
Like trying to plant something.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? It didn't.
It
didn't make
didn't.
it then. If it did, he ignored it all. And I know he thought a couple of times because
I'm sure he knew
I
that
know
that
him.
was meant.
Like, listen, when I say I know him, I read him like a book. And he's tough to read because he's got that fucking face. But I know. And just little things he does. And
You said it to me.
I got it. I heard a couple of things, and he knew they're talking about me. But he refused to let it in. And then what I now looking back, it's pure hindsight. I should have attacked that moment like a couple days later and said, "Hey, fuck nuts. That whole thing was about you. I'm worried about you. Let's go." Now I left him a couple of texts and messages after it was too late. Like, "Hey, I'm worried about you. Get back to me." He was already gone. Like, you know, at that point, this is now after this, but right after that episode, when it didn't really phase him.
Yeah, he couldn't. You couldn't see when you used to do the Instagram lives or anything else. I was like,
say, "Yo,
hey,
are you watching this?" And be like,
"Yeah." I'm like, something's, you know.
I always watch it after.
Like, it's us, you know. We've been like, you know, dry mouth. I'm like, something's.
Bobby
something's
told
not right.
me the one that hit him the hardest is in the beginning. It was a social media question. I still remember it. And I said, you can't let anybody drown you. Right? That's what it was. Like sometimes you try to throw a lifeline to friends and stuff, but eventually you got to be careful because they could drown you too. And you said that's where his face changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was serious. Like I'm sitting there talking about him. I'm sitting there talking because he consumed so much of my thoughts the last 2 months of his life. It's crazy.
I know.
I think in a long run that, you know, you have to be cognizant of everything that's going on. And obviously you have to be much more proactive if you think something's wrong. You just can't sit back and think, he'll never do that. But I think because of a lot of the stuff that was being said and a lot of the things that are on the podcast and a lot of the suffering, that he started feeling like, I'm not worth it. This isn't worth it. I'm not worth it. And when you start losing your self-worth, anything's possible. You know, even for a guy that was as strong as he was.
Right. And like you didn't even that specific day, you know, we didn't really even think something like that could have occurred. I was like, you know,
it was never even entered my mind.
Maybe he's sleeping or
what I should have done. I'm telling you right now. So this is my woulda, shoulda, coulda. What I should have done is I should have had a private conversation with him and said, Mike, I don't want you on the show anymore. I want Mike Failace, clean, sober, and clear next to me. That's the guy who I love. That's the guy who I want next to me. That's the guy who's best for this show. But at that time, towards the last...
Well, you did ask me about that. And I
did.
said no.
Right. We've had conversations about this. I should have done that, but I saw his life imploding. His, you know, he was having some family issues. He was having some relationship issues. And I saw this as his stability. Like, this is our Wednesday night thing. This is where him and I get together. And if I take that away from him, not like I got any power, but if I take that away from him, he's gonna destroy himself. And I can't. I said that to you. I said I can't have that on my conscience.
But deep down inside, he knew that. And go to back when he was talking before. That's why, if him or I might have went to his, it would have been different with you. You know what I mean? It's a different relationship. If we would have went there, you know, it would have been like, oh shit.
I knew he would have gotten pissed off at me, but I was too.
Because he would have known that something
'Cause
he loves.
I was too afraid to lose a friend.
You guys were
Right.
in a relationship,
Right.
like you know what I mean, like
This
listen,
is something he loved, and he
his-
knew you could.
I could. So I know now. I know, and it pains me to say it, that if I went to him, that it may have made a difference. Like if I had actually went to him and said, Mike, you need to talk to me. I need to talk to you right now. You need to sit down. I need to tell you this shit. I'm going to be on you. We're going to do this every fucking day. And that's what I wish I did, because he needed that. And I didn't do that. Like I didn't do it. And I keep asking myself, why? And this is what happens in these situations. We all got these question marks. We didn't.
But you said it in your episode, The Suffering of Sobriety. You said it. If you were to, when you were full-blown alcoholism, and you said, hey, you're hitting it kind of hard. Shut up, Michael. Mind your own business. Those are your exact words.
I did.
And so that's how I viewed what he would do.
This is a true story. That's a true statement. That when I said it, it's because he said it to me. He said, dude, he goes, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to lose your fucking job. Like he said that to me. Like we were just out. I was hitting it hard. You know what I'm saying? And he said, dude, you're going to end up losing your job. I wasn't like, just, I don't even know why he said it. We were just drinking. He goes, you're just, I said, Michael, shut the fuck up. And he goes, all right.
Right. And that's...
But he planted a seed in my head. And 6 months later, you know, it takes all those little things. It takes those people like the Mike DePalmas and the Kevin Donaldsons of the world, like to go to you and just say, knowing that somebody cared about you, you know? That ultimately it's you that gets you over the hump. You know? Who's to say that I wouldn't have done what he did if I continued to keep doing that, you know?
True.
You can never say that you can't get so low. You know what I mean? Now I don't have control over my own life anymore. Now it's got control over me. I'm totally consumed.
And it could take control. You know,
I want to get to the last day of his life. So it's Wednesday, May 8th. We're recording here. We're recording a gentleman named Seth Gale, which starts airing on Friday, which is Mike's last episode that he did in this podcast. We did our Instagram Live. I get out of the recording. Now, mind you, Mike's sitting over here. I'm not looking him in the face. I can't see anything. Or Instagram Live, he's standing to the next man. I can't see his face. I don't even get into my car and my phone's blowing up from you two. We had a conversation. I spoke to both of you.
We had a conversation.
And
It was like a circle jerk.
Yeah,
something was up. You got to watch the mouth. I think the consensus is there was more than alcohol at play, which Mike was not that guy.
No, he wasn't.
He was not that guy.
I never saw him. I hung out with Mike and drank a lot with Mike, and he would show up over the last. I'm sober. It's going to be 4 years. Before that, we would be hanging out. He'd show up. I would go out with him. He'd meet me at bars, and then I would always disappear and leave him to go wherever because I was the alcoholic, you know. I never saw him do anything. I never saw him do anything except for drink alcohol. That night on the thing, the first thing I said to Mike was, he looks like he's on something. Like,
I thought maybe like, you know, he was not himself.
Whether it was prescription or illicit, it doesn't really matter.
Right. It's irrelevant.
But it also alters your mind, you know?
Right.
You're drinking like that, and it's like, who knows?
Maybe mentally,
I think
checked out.
I think that's what,
You know what I mean?
think that
Or-
was the last ditch effort at some peace, and what it actually did is gave him the courage to do what he had in his mind.
Well, everybody knows that alcohol or any kind of substance, it enhances things, and you know it causes
Both ways.
it causes that
Both
anxiety.
ways.
So you know if you're in a little hole, you're going to go deeper into that hole.
But
you know,
the fixation on your father-in-law's death,
Yeah.
that's kind of what hit me the hardest.
I was like, there's no
He's
way he
fixating
wouldn't be
on.
there.
Never met the guy, right?
Nope.
Doesn't know who he is, but fixating like on it, like
Emotional.
so emotionally upset and consumed with death. Now, my opinion, and I know maybe you were going to get to this, but I'm just going to say it. I think that he planned this for a long time. I think he just didn't have the courage because he was Dr. Death. And we joke about it.
We did. We joked about it.
We joke about it.
We actually
it's called
said
the
it.
Grim Reaper.
We used to said it. He's going to he's going to call us to tell us he died.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like people might think that's like, you know,
But that's
morbid,
that's our
but
sense of
he
humor.
would. That was his sense. if I got a text from him, first thing I thought is, who the fuck died?
Well,
Like, he would text me about all kinds of...
I remember.
During football season, he was every day, okay? Because the kids were playing, and it was football, and that's, whatever. It was everything, and he knew that high school football is my thing, right? So it was just like, I would know shit. He would ask me, hey, Seton Hall's playing this team. What do you think about this? And I would know what was going on. Then, like, the rest of the season, it was like once a week, maybe twice, or he'd stop over the house, because he's a fixture, right? For years and years and years. Well over 15 years of doing this every single week. And I got to the point where I was like, when he would text me, I'd be like, first, okay, who died? And a lot of times somebody died, I'd be like, Mike, what the fuck? Do you like look in the obituaries so you can fucking beat the person?
On Monday, which is May 6th, he called me. Now, mind you, my father-in-law already passed, and I didn't call him. I'm not Dr. Death, so I don't call everybody to say somebody died. He didn't know my father-in-law. He called me to tell there's a guy who listens to the show. He's in Pittsburgh. His name's Bernie O'Brien. He's like, yeah, Bernie's father died. I'm like, and I already know where it was going. Mike wanted me to do a post for it. I'm like, Mike, listen, I can't really right now. My father-in-law just passed. I'm kind of dealing with that and my wife right now. But I was like, I'm hanging. I got the phone. I'm like, motherfucker did it again. Tell me about somebody who died.
He loved it. Actually, it became like a joke after a while. Like, not that death is a joke, but he would purposely do it. Like,
He called me to tell me somebody's farm animal died.
I told him, hey, so-and-so died. Like, I thought I beat him to it. And he goes, dude, yeah, that's old news. He had something else for me. Like, something he said to me made me crack up. I just was like, I can't, like, this guy,
So he
wait, just before getting back to that, we were talking about how his behavior was, whatever, but one of the biggest things that caught my eye on that Instagram Live was right in the beginning. He said,
there's going to be a lot of loss tonight.
Right. I didn't pick
it up. Yeah. I actually looked at him and go, what the fuck are you talking about?
Like, honestly, and I don't make things about me. I'm not that type of a man. I don't utilize, like, it's just not me, but it actually kept on replaying in my head, and I'm like, oh, shit, man. Like, and then, like, now the aftermath, you're like, damn.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring something to your attention right now. So after Mike passed, after he did what he did, that final night, right? We all know the thing about final night, and I want to get to our reactions in just a moment. I reached out to a friend of mine because I was grieving, and I wanted a little bit of peace. I wanted a way. I couldn't do enough to solidify his memory. So I called a friend of mine, Danny Rivera. You know him as Bookham. He runs the Bridges Project.
Real good guy.
And he made this song. He worked on it, made this song, and I'm not a rap fan by any means, but I can recognize talent, and Danny's got talent. So I said, Danny, just listen, can you pen something? You got some talent. I need something. He sends me this song, and I'll never forget it. I'm listening to it in my kitchen, and I can't breathe. My wife, who works from home, sees me, and she's like, what's the matter? And I can't talk because I can't breathe. And she actually gets mad at me. She goes, I thought you were having a heart attack. I said, so you fucking yell at me if I'm going to have a heart attack? She's yelling at me because she's getting scared. And it's called The Other Side. And I put together a little video, and I want you guys to see it for the first time. And it's going to be played now, and we'll also play it at the end of this episode because I want everybody else to see it. It's pretty solid. Hey, Andrew, you got that? Can you play that for me?
I miss you, but I'll be alright until the day I see you on the other side. I'll keep on looking to the sky until the day I see you on the other side. See you on the other side.
I might give you a smile through my vigorous pain. You could be my enemy, I wouldn't wish you the same. When a storm hits, my cheekbones trickle with rain. Edge of my bed, looking at my kids' pictures again. Death started looking real enticing again. I got drive, but here I go, hitchhiking again. My good friends always tell me, you gon' make it through. Rock solid character, so they think I'm unbreakable. Heart shattered in pieces, I'm battling demons. Sky's the limit, but the ground's been collapsing beneath me. A lot of brothers in blue, lately we haven't been speaking. Maybe when I'm dead, they'll act like they happy to see me. Academy taught me they'll have my back whenever I need them. Roll call is packed, but I feel nobody can see me. God sent me messages, then my depression deleted. Lord, it's hard to be strong when you feel so defeated. God.
I miss you, but I'll be alright. Until the day I see you on the other side. I'll keep on looking to the sky. Until the day I see you on the other side. See you on the other side.
My circle is super small, but the love is immense. Forgive me, just know my loyalty wasn't pretend. Brothers who shared too much pain just to be friends. Every amazing story must eventually come to an end. So here I am, crossroads, hoping for a miracle. Tunnel vision, feel death, Lord, I'm not hearing you. Amazing grace, door cracks open, a light peering through. This broken soul right away started feeling new. I made it far in this vessel that's broken and scarred. Open book, always remember from what I spoke on the pod. When the mirrors are fogged, it's hard to know who you are. When I'm gone, just know that I ain't going too far. I shall live in your hearts, keep going on strong. When it's time to meet again, I'll open the door. Cherish the moments and you suffering to show them some love. Death wins, not today, I'm taking the show on the road.
I miss you, but I'll be alright. Until the day I see you on the other side. I'll keep on looking to the sky. Until the day I see you on the other side. See you on the other side.
Wow, man, that's
really good.
That's
Impactful.
It's tough to watch, man.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That guy's talented, man.
It's tough to watch. So, Mike does what he does. He does it at the night he died. I lay down in my bed. I can't sleep. Right? I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I lay down at 11:45, and I remember my last conscious thought before I fell asleep was, I'm going to call Mike tomorrow, and I'm going to have a talk with him. And I was like, what the fuck?
Like a heart to heart.
Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing? Something's wrong. It was after multiple conversations with you guys. And I fall asleep shortly after 11:45. At 11:58, my first call, I think, was from you.
I called you a couple times and I texted you.
So I woke up at 3 in the morning. My phone was blowing up. All right, I don't sleep with my phone in the room, otherwise it'd keep me up all night. So I check my phone. First call I see is from you. Then I see a call from Mackie. Then I see a call from Frank, his brother. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I call Frank first. I think I call Frank back. And I'm in my garage. I fall to my knees. And I'm like, tell me tell me this is a joke. Tell me this is a dream. It's not fucking funny. Don't do this to me. And then I went in and told my wife. And I had to tell my kids too, because both my kids knew Mike. And I had to tell them not what he did. I said, look, Daddy's going to be a little off. And then I had to go to work.
Yeah.
So you got the call from Mackie.
I was working. I'm still active, so I work at night. I run a street crimes unit at CSU. But I was in my office, and my phone rings. It's Mackie. And I'm like, I answer it. First, she texted me, and I couldn't understand the text. It was like something, I don't know what. Then she called me, and I asked her, I said, what's up? And she's like, Mike's dead. Mike's screaming it. Mike's dead, he's dead, Bobby, he's dead, he's in the bed, he's dead, he's cold. I said, calm down. You know, cop takes over always, right? No emotion whatsoever. I said, what's the address? I know it's on Copeland, right? So I said, I didn't know the exact address. I was never there.
17 Copeland.
I thought it was 34.
It could be. But
Anyway.
it was on the
Way
paper.
to throw a number out there. So I said, go outside. And I said, what's the address? She goes, I don't know. I just know the house. I go outside, look at the number. I said, I need the number. She went outside. She's hysterical. I'm like, dude, this fucking girl. She went in there because he didn't answer the phone calls. Or he wasn't on Instagram. He's always on Instagram. He hadn't been on Instagram for like over 12 hours, and she was like, this isn't like him. I know his what he does. Like I said, super structured person, right? He was easy to follow. He left the breadcrumbs out for you. So she goes outside. She said, pretty sure she said 34. I might be wrong too. But anyway, I called my dispatch. I said, you know, my number 94 950. Go send Leonard's PD to this address. Possible DOA. Girlfriend's on scene. So they went over, and she was like, you know, she was there, and you know, she saw the whole thing. You know, so he's I obviously didn't go. Like, you know, I didn't go there. You know what? One of the Lyndhurst officers got on the phone with me and was like, do you want to come here? And I'm like, I've seen hundreds of DOAs. I said, the last thing I need to see is my friend dead on the bed with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I don't need to see that. I can see it enough already. I don't need to see it. That's something that just would have threw me over the top. I couldn't. And that's the difference. I could look at 100 of them and not think one thing about it, you know, because I don't have a connection. You know what I mean? When you have that, just forget about it. So anyway, that poor girl, you know.
She's scarred.
Oh, my God.
For the rest of her life.
And I talked to Mackie quite a bit because if Mike was my brother, by default, she's my sister.
She ended up with him because of me.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I don't know how.
Mike,
that's something.
how did you find out? I don't think I ever asked you this.
You texted. You said he's gone.
And that, I tell you what, you know, we're all.
I was taken back. I was like, what?
I'm worried about him. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, I know how he is. He's emotional. He you know, he wears it out there. I'm super worried about you, and I'm telling him, and he's like, no, you know, and I'm like, yeah, like, you know. So there comes the part where, you know, where we go through this whole thing, and you know, I wasn't thinking about anything. So I remember saying to you, I did everything I was angry. I did everything I could for him. This is on him. I was pissed because I got to be strong for everybody on top of it. And I'm like, you know, I'm not showing everything. And then as we went through the whole thing, I realized that I didn't do everything I could have did. And that's when it came to a screeching halt. Like, it was a week afterwards. He was buried and gone. And I watched him, the hurts dry. I said, I'm done. But I wasn't even close to being done. I'm still not done. I just got this tattoo yesterday.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's a nice tattoo.
And I'm going to tell you guys something about this tattoo. I didn't want a hand tattoo. I hate hand tattoos. I had a dream. Is it okay if I tell this?
Absolutely.
I had a dream. Got to compose myself.
No, you don't.
So I'm in this diner. I think it's a diner. I'm not 100%. And I look down at my hand. I'm sitting at the counter, and I got a tattoo. And it says Mike Failace on it. It's like a badge, but I'm not 100% what it was on the badge. And then for some reason, I turn to my left, and Mike is walking out. And he looks back at me, and the door goes. I look back, and now I see the tattoo. I know it's a badge. I don't know exactly what it says. I remember the blue line or a black line going through the middle of the seal. And it was in my dream. And I fought with myself and said, I'm going to get this tattoo for him. Do I put it on my hand where I saw it, or do I put it somewhere else? Because I hate hand tattoos. I don't like them, you know, and some people look good with them on there, but I don't, that's not my thing. I was going to put it on my leg. I was going to put it on my back. I was going to put it in all these different places. And I said, you know what? Fuck it. It doesn't feel right. I have to put it on my hand because he was in the dream. And it was so real for me. I know people are going to think that sounds corny, but it felt like it was a sign, like I have to put it there. Like it has to be here to remind me that friendship is sometimes friendship, it doesn't last forever, and that maybe I didn't do enough. I definitely didn't do enough to help him. I'm looking at it like it's a memory, it's for him. It's not about me. It's nothing about this tattoo. This is all about him, so it's on my hand, and I got to look at it for the rest of my fucking life, and I don't even like the goddamn thing on my hand, to be honest with you. But but it's for him, you know, and that's, I hope that makes sense, because it brought me to a different spot, like what people should really do. Do the opposite of what you normally would do when you have this opportunity, which I hope you never do, that your friend is so fucked up and you sit there and you watch him just self-deteriorate and you don't do anything because you're so prideful that your brand of recovery and your, like I talk on this shit, all this big talk, that fucking didn't save my friend's life. It made it worse. I should have did something.
So, Mike, what was your reaction when you heard? So I have a, and this so I couldn't put it out publicly because at the time when I found out, when I was able to put it out publicly, Mike's father hadn't been notified yet. I was trying to be respectful. I said, Frank, I talked to his brother. I said, Frank, let me know when you notify your father. I'm going to put it out on Instagram. Mike had a lot of support, a lot of followers out there. It was probably one of the toughest things I ever did. And I remember right before it went live, I go, I don't even know what the hell I'm going to say. So I just let it out, right? And it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. Going to his viewing, I got there early because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want everybody to see me break because I knew there was one of two things that was going to happen. It's either I was going to jump on top of the casket and punch the body bloody, you know, just destroy it because I was so mad, or I was going to break. Well, I broke, and I wanted to get that out before everybody else got there. But being this far removed from it, and I said this for weeks now, this is something we need to feel. We need to feel this stuff because we all feel that we didn't do enough. We left it on the playing field, or we did not leave it on the playing field.
No.
You know? So if we feel this, and this is a sucky feeling to have, it just blows. The next time an opportunity like this comes up, I don't ever want to feel like this. I don't know about you guys.
No.
But I also want to point out that how grateful I am to both of you, because I leaned into you two so hard and so heavy. I think we spoke, for the first 2 weeks, we spoke every day, multiple times a day. Because I didn't know where else to turn. Nobody else would understand. You know, my wife was mad. Like, she just lost her father. And she's like, but he killed himself. Like, and I said, yes, but he was still my friend. He had a lot of faults. He wasn't a perfect person, but he was still my friend. And I could have done more, and I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I didn't do anything. So,
That's, hey, listen, not today came out of this all, which is a huge positive thing, because what Not Today is all about is saving lives.
Right.
If you really want to break it down and look at it, it's about saving lives. It's about doing what you need to do and getting it out there that you need. There's always somebody out there.
Well, the sun is going to rise tomorrow. There's been many days throughout all of us where we just were like, I'm calling it. You
know what? That's one, like, that was kind of what you said, but like, that was just frustrating, where he had 3 guys that been through that, you know, and we can give him probably the best advice in the world. You know?
He didn't come to us.
Well, he didn't come to us on purpose because he didn't.
Right. But I get that point. But it, and I don't make anything about myself. You know, I'm just not that type. Like, you know, I said it before, and it was just, you know, it brought a lot of. It's not because of him. It's because of, you know, how I handle things and things I've seen. It just brought a lot of stuff back into play. You know.
Oh my God, it's so.
Like I literally, my mindset replayed, and like I said, I don't make this about me, and I'm.
But there's good things that came out of this.
There's
beauty,
very positive. So
there's beauty out of ashes.
You take what he did, and I guess
most fun episode I ever had. Most fun episode I ever had.
You could see the smile, but like you take what he did, and it's not the best thing in the world, but just think about what he's about to shine upon other people from that.
There's many things. There's many gifts that Mike Failace
and he's
gave
still
me.
even at that time, he's still who he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know this is morbid or whatever it is, but he has the opportunity to still, help others. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's the right thing to say.
A good friend of mine said to me just last night. They said, a lot of times people that make other people laugh and make people feel confident and good about themselves are the people that have the most issues. You know what I mean? Those are the people that, that need the help, but they're too busy making everybody laugh and everybody feel good about themselves, and they're helping so much that they just can't help themselves.
Right.
And this person used Robin Williams as an example. Like, he would be like a great example.
Made millions of people laugh.
But Mike made a great point, and I'm not making it about. This is about way bigger than any one of single
people,
of us.
His dad,
But
his family. It's just
with me. This brought me back. It set me back, and I felt that. And listen, I just got done saying. I think I said it to you like about a month ago. Yeah, fuck that. I'll never go back to therapy again. I don't need that shit. I'm done with that crap. I'm right here. I'm right here. 2 weeks ago, Mike, you got a therapist for me? I got to go talk to somebody. I'm not scared to say it. I'll tell anybody that. I'm going. I need to stay here.
My therapist
I can't get down.
Saved my life, man. I've been with 7 years.
So Mike and I got the same therapist.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, and I couldn't get in because she didn't have time for me, so I had to get somebody
You're
else.
not as important as we are.
She's
You're not as fucked up as ours.
You're soft.
I know.
Like she's amazing. Like she's she's very into first responders, so forth and so on. But I don't know. That's
she recommended somebody. And the woman that she recommended
that's
is
the thing. It's out there. You don't have to be cops. You don't have to be afraid to talk to somebody.
You're asking for help.
My pastor put it very clearly. I went to church the Sunday after I found out, and I called him right away because I lean into my pastor. I trust him, and I give his words hold a lot of weight to me. And here's what he said to me, and it kind of gave me a little bit of peace. He said, because Mike and I met Adam Burt at the same time. We had him in because he was a professional hockey player. We were going to hear some cool hockey stories. He goes, I met you and Mike here. You're on equal footing. And he goes, I watched you. And I don't want to make this about faith because people think I'm a Jesus freak. He goes, I watched you find your faith and find the community in the church, and I watched you go like this. We tried to draw Mike in. We did. We tried to just say, hey, just come to one. Just see how it fits you. And Mike wouldn't. And this is what was going on. And this is how he's doing it. And he goes, the further you found your faith, the further away you got from Mike because he was down. He was backsliding. He was going down. And but it's not going to relieve the guilt. It's not. But there's a lot of gifts. He gave us the Not Today movement. He gave me you two. Like that's the most important gift that he gave me. He brought me to you two, who, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if I could have gotten through this without you two. And I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate it.
Well, he promised me a high colonic, and then he dipped out on it. So
that's what I love about Bobby Crudele.
No, really. He said to me, I'll pay. Because I said to him, you ever get a high colonic? And he said, no. And I said, it's power wash. You get up in there. I said, colonoscopy doesn't beat it. This is a high colonic. You're awake for it, so it feels good. So he goes, I said, I really want one. And he said to me,
you're a sick motherfucker.
I'll pay for it if you let me watch. And I said, I'm down because he knew right away. He goes, I said, why would you even ask? You bring me. It's like you're my date. You can sit there and do whatever you want. Voyeurism, I'm down.
And you can watch it go through the tube,
and
apparently.
he's like, I'll definitely pay for that.
See,
I said, they're expensive.
This is what he would have loved. You know what I mean?
That's why I'm doing it, because I'm looking over there and he's there.
I remember his face that when we were on the show, he's
there.
He was in
and
his
right
glory.
now he's cracking up because of the fucking
glory.
high colonic. I'm like, yeah. Oh, really? Seriously?
I miss him every single day, but unfortunately, this episode is coming to an end.
Of course, because we don't have enough money to get any more studio time, right? Cheap bastards.
Mike's death has taught us. It's hard to quantify how much it's taught us. I think it's made us better people. I think it's brought us closer together. But if you, Mike, we'll start with you, Mike. If you could pick one thing that Mike's death has taught you, this suffering that you've gone through, what do you think it is?
it's okay. Put your pride down. It's okay to talk. It's okay to open up, especially to people that like us that really care about them.
Bobby, what do you think?
I think if I learned anything about this, or he taught me to be less stubborn. He taught me to think outside of the box and not be so. Mike said pride. I'm going to say prideful in the sense that my way is the right way, and he knew that about me. He knew that I had conviction in what I said about things that are adverse. Listen, addiction and alcoholism are adverse things. They affect people adversely. They affect people around you adversely. And he knew that when I got sober, I had my thing, and this is the way I do it, and this is the way I help people that want help. If you don't want help, there's the highway, buddy, right? And he knew that, and he used that not to use me. You know what I mean? And he taught me that I can't be like that, that I have to, if I see something and I care enough, I have to do something about it.
I've said many times that my circle of friends is so small, all right? And I can't lose another one. I have to be willing, this is what all of this has taught me. I have to be willing to lose one of my inner circle of friends in order to save their life. Because having you guys as my friend is important to me. But like you said, it's not about me, all right? That's a selfish thing. To want you guys in my life. It's very, very selfish, but I got to stop making this about me. If you start going downhill, I got to say, Mike, you're fucking wrong what you're doing, and not be afraid of what the consequences are. Whether you never talk to me again, as long as you're alive. As long as you're alive. I got to drop that fear. So this is what that's taught me. That won't happen anymore. I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to end this on one note, cuz the last thing he said to me was, I love you, brother, and I love you guys both. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Kevin.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Mike Failace. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Mike was the one who brought everyone together. Mike was definitely born to be a cop. Mike closed down his emotions, especially later in his life. We all got to notice the signs. There is nothing that will give you relief from the guilt. But most importantly, Mike gave me many gifts, but the best one was Bobby and Mike. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount. Follow us on all social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Clapper, OnlyFans. And that's going to do it for this episode. We will see you on the next one.